test, 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 test. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello. There's double trouble in the back. Behave yourselves.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. And I really appreciate the fact that you're here to learn all you can to be good stewards in the way we actually go to the polls and vote for Sedona. It's good to see our community get involved. I'm Shelley Evans, and I just really think this is about the most important vote on the ballot that we're discussing tonight on the home rule. And Donna?
My name is Donna Joy, and I've lived here about 30 years. I've followed this for quite some time. So I hope that if you have any questions at the end of both the video and our presentation, that you write them down and ask away, because we have the facts. Thank you.
And I would also like to everybody just kind of take a minute, and just kind of breathe into the fact of what is it we want to see for Sedona beyond the voting, beyond everything else. What is it we want to envision? What do we want to bring into our community? And I want to remember to make that our focus. It's not a battle. It's not a fight or anything. There's always a way to get to where we want to go. And it's just looking at what we have a vision and really setting it out there. And us as the people deciding to come together and create that vision together gives us so much more power than looking at anything that we think might be not going in the course in the direction we want it to. We do have the ability to change it. And if you're here listening to already, you know you do make a difference. And so why are we here? And it's basically because the home rule that is currently in place in Sedona, the city council is submitting a proposal to actually extend home rule. If they didn't submit that proposal, then the home rule that we are currently operating under would have just expired. But they're asking that we renew it again. We get the right to renew it once every 4 years. So when you put this into play, this is what you have for 4 years. You don't get to vote it out again for 4 more years.
Do we want to take a peek at Chuck Tyler's video?
Oh, yes. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and play that video, John, because it actually kind of really gets down and explains at a really good level of understanding.
So Chuck Tyler is a local videographer. He does incredible work. You're going to really appreciate this, and he is local. So at the very end of his video, it will have his email address and how to find him.
A lot of people are talking about home rule right now. And we have an election here in Sedona on August 2nd, where we, the people of Sedona, have the responsibility of either voting home rule in or voting it out. Now, we have the city council trying desperately to tell all the citizens of Sedona to vote for home rule. But a lot of Sedona citizens are against home rule. So what is home rule, and why should we care about it? We're going to take a look at what home rule is, and then we'll show you what the ballot is going to look like, so you're ready for it. To understand home rule, we need to first understand how the state of Arizona gives Sedona a budget to follow. Every city in Arizona must follow the state's budget guideline. This guideline is called baseline. The state also refers to this as the state-imposed expenditure limitation. With baseline, the state allows Sedona to have a set amount of money. Let's say $35 million for the year. But if that's not enough for us, if the Sedona City Council, for instance, wants an additional $20 million, the City Council would then put together a proposal and present it to we, the people of Sedona. And that additional $20 million can be approved by a vote of the people if we decide it's a good idea. This is called a one-time override, and it's called that because we can decide to override the budget and increase it once a year in May. And we can do it every year to increase the state-imposed limitation to whatever we the people want it to be. With Baseline, we can always get all the money we need for the city, and we the people of Sedona will always be informed and involved in what changes are being made in our city. Projects will never be initiated without us first knowing about it, deciding what we want, and then voting it in or voting it out. So, if that's Baseline, what is Home Rule? Home Rule is an alternative to Baseline. Baseline is the state-imposed expenditure limitation, and Home Rule is the alternative expenditure limitation. What Home Rule does is it takes out the part of the process where the City Council has to ask us permission to spend the money on something. They don't have to tell us, the people of Sedona, anything. They can do whatever they want with the city budget, and we, the people of Sedona, are not involved at all. It's like handing them our credit card and then looking the other way. This process gives all the power to the city employees and none to the people of Sedona. You can see why the City Council is so intent on getting all of us in Sedona to hand them all of our power. With Home Rule, we have no voice. If we vote Home Rule in on August 2nd, how long does it last? If we vote Home Rule in, it stays in place for 4 years before we can vote on it again. Think about how many changes can be made to Sedona without your permission in 4 years. Look at what has happened in the last 4 years without your permission that has been damaging our community. Home Rule has been in effect for years. In the last year alone, the population of Sedona has dropped, but the city decided to add over $1 million in paychecks for new city employees. We're getting smaller, and they're getting bigger. What can I do about this? If you want your voice back, vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. If you want the city to ask you what you want, instead of doing whatever they want with the money, then vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. They need you to vote Home Rule in on August 2nd, so they can keep all of their unlimited power and keep you out of the process. Get out and vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. Take just a little bit of time and take your city back. Get out and vote no on Home Rule on August 2nd. Now, on voting day, the wording on the ballot can be very confusing, so let's go through what you'll see on the ballot. Here's the ballot from 4 years ago. But this year's ballot is going to look pretty much the same. If you need some more time to read through any of this, just pause the video. There will be a proposition proposing an extension of the alternative expenditure limitation. This is the Home Rule proposition. This year, it's called Ballot Measure 458. You'll see that voting yes will extend Home Rule, taking away your voice for 4 more years. And voting no will end Home Rule for the next 4 years, taking us back to Baseline and allowing us to decide what's best for our city. Notice here how the description of a no vote doesn't mention anything about we the people of Sedona being able to use the annual override to increase the budget. This wording can be confusing, but don't be fooled. The state's imposed expenditure limitation will allow us all the money we want. And it will be your decision, not the city employees. You'll also find on the ballot a summary analysis of Home Rule. This is supposed to explain to you exactly what Home Rule is. The wording here can be confusing as well, so let's look at it. The numbers listed in this summary make it look like Home Rule gets the city of Sedona more money, and that the state expenditure limitation, Baseline, gets the city less money. But, once again, it leaves out the ability of the people of Sedona to use the annual override to approve all the money we want and need. It also leaves out the part where, with Home Rule, the city does not have to get our approval for what they do with our budget. Again, with Home Rule, they have all the power over all the money, and we have no voice. The state expenditure limitation is designed to keep the people of the city involved. Home Rule is not. So read the ballot carefully. Take your time educate yourself, empower yourself, and then decide for yourself. If you want your voice back, if you want to decide what happens to Sedona using your tax money, then vote no on Home Rule August 2nd. If you found this video helpful, please consider donating a few bucks to the links below. And leave me a comment with the Sedona topics you'd like me to cover next.
Chuck put that together really to just try to give us an overview of why do we care. And like I said, we're basically here because the city council has decided they're going to put home rule back on the ballot to see if we will allow them to keep it in place. If we didn't vote to keep it in place, then home rule goes away and we go back to the state guidelines of what the state says is basically in play to help we the people from corruption and other people spending the money without our vote and without our voice. So we need to know that we trust that our city's heading in the right direction. So
And remember that we wouldn't be having this conversation if City Council had requested it be a ballot measure. So they need a yes or a no on this. So when we look at the state expenditure limitation, it is a mouthful to say, but the reality is that is the state guideline. So without the state guideline, if it doesn't match the city or town, the state gives two options, and those two options are permanent base and home rule or alternative expenditure limitation. Permanent base is one that we hear more and more about, and that is a real viable option for us in Sedona once home rule fails.
Trying to catch my slides up here with me. And so basically, did the city council, City of Sedona, earn your trust and prove they are good stewards for Sedona under the home rule? We're going in a one-way direction really fast. So did they earn our trust? Are they being good stewards?
So when we went to the city council meeting, or it wasn't the city council meeting, excuse me, it was the community meeting on home rule, the city presented why they felt they needed to operate under home rule. And when they did so, they brought up visitor population, new city revenue sources, increased bed and sales tax, and service level reductions would occur without home rule.
Okay. Now let's look at the priorities of where our city council sits from what we saw when we went and set in on the budget and the things that are going on. The city council's basically visitor population, the revenues, increased tax rates voted in by the council, city revenues, no bid contracts, tourism improvements and marketing, and the city council claims to know better than the residents what we need for the direction of Sedona. So that's pretty much where the city council was saying their intentions lie in their own meeting.
And us residents, we are more concerned about our residents' quality of life, the health, welfare, and safety of our area. We believe that sometimes less is more. So the sunset tax was made permanent, and then we also had an increase of bed tax in 2014. The stewardship should come first. Small businesses, artists, and small town charm is the reason why I moved here. I don't know about you in the audience, but definitely that was the reason why I came here, and we would like to have a voice in our community.
And so let's look at the high tourism cities that are close by just for a little bit of a comparison. We have Flagstaff. They have a population of nearly 77,000 people, and it's climbing. And then we have the in-city tourism management in Flagstaff. The city takes care of their tourism themselves, and they actually have 7 city services that they are over. They're over like their city, their police, their fire, their wastewater, their water, and then also they are voter approved sales and bed taxes. And so My clicker is working half the time, so bear with me. So they are actually voter approved on their sales and bed taxes. Okay, and then in Prescott, we have a population of nearly 46,000, and they also have an in-city tourism management. And there are over 6 different city services in their city, and they too have voter-approved sales and bed taxes. So, and they have, they're really good stewards of how they operate, they are under the home rule option, but with the sales and bed taxes being voter approved, they actually run their organization much like the state baseline is.
Their sales tax in both of these cities and their bed tax are significantly lower than Sedona. When we look at Sedona, our population is declining. We are not growing. And we have a third-party private-public agreement with the city of Sedona, and that is outsourced to the local Chamber of Commerce. We only have 2 city services, and we are city council-imposed sales tax and bed tax. So when we look at these policies and we look at how these other high tourism cities operate, we can really say that they have wonderful checks and balances because the voters vote in their sales tax and their bed tax rates. We don't have one group deciding on everything for the city or town. So the next slide is a budget slide, and it basically just shows you, is this responsible spending? So we have gone from 51 plus million, then we jumped to 62, and this current year that we're entering is supposed to be 110 to 113 million dollars. Why did we jump so much?
Is that responsible spending with the economic downturn? Well, actually,
yes, they did. They increased our taxes. So our sales tax rate went up 0.5%. They had it on a sunset. So originally, when we look at the taxes of the city, we had a bed tax at 3%. And then in 2014, they raised the bed tax 0.5% to promote tourism dollars. Then they took 55% of the bed tax and spent it on marketing through the Regional Chamber of Commerce. Then what happened is we had too many tourists and not enough infrastructure. So then they put in the sunset tax to help us with our infrastructure. And it was supposed to be for a short period of time. And last year, the city council voted to make it permanent. So now we have 3.5% bed tax, 3.5% sales tax.
And it's interesting because we're here and we don't know that all the time. If we're not watching everything really closely, we don't know that we just got a permanent tax imposed because it doesn't need to come to a vote of the people.
And so when we look at outstanding debt, of course, that's climbing. We've got a lot of things happening at the city. And we would like to know, is this the right direction now? When we see interest rates climbing, we see inflation, we have housing is unstable, we don't know which direction it's going to go. Is this the time now to make a change where we're jumping this budget up so high and creating more debt?
Well, and on that debt, it's like when you look at the numbers of the debt, as our budget increases, so does our ability to borrow. So they can borrow more money when the budget is higher. Their borrowing power is more. So we got to, they've got to be good stewards of that. We're not only giving them our checkbook, we're handing them our credit cards.
So the next slide talks about the capital improvement projects, and we can all see that it's jumping up $62 million in excess of that. And our question is that what happens if things go bad? Who's going to be carrying these dollars? The residents of Sedona will be responsible for it.
And in those capital improvements, that's land purchases, it's construction, at a time they're moving forward with projects that are going to cost a lot more with the economy where it's at right now. It's all going to be much higher out of our pocketbooks to spend that money this year. So has the city council put all the eggs in the tourism basket under home rule, Donna?
Absolutely. So if we look at pretty much every policy at City Hall, we look at the sales tax getting hiked to promote tourism. Then we look at the sales tax getting hiked to handle the impact of tourism. We have definitely put all the eggs in the tourism basket. We have no trains, no airport that could bring in any other resources for us to get products in and out of Sedona. So by putting everything in the tourism basket, then if that fails, we're going to be in a bad position because we won't have the revenues coming in. Outsourcing to tourism management groups only creates distance between the in-city businesses and the city government, and we need to bring them together for the same common cause.
Catch up my slideshow here for you since I got behind on that. Okay, now why is home rule unhealthy? Donna, you've been seeing what was coming on here for a long time. And 2018, when home rule was back up for a vote, you stood up, you spoke out at that point in time, and you really met with some opposition. And so can you kind of explain to us what we're looking at here?
Well, this particular slide is a email sent from Steve Segner, who is the Lodging Council president. They are an affinity group for the Sedona Chamber of Commerce. And during the last home rule, they were avid that they needed home rule to continue their funding. They get somewhere between $2 million and $3 million a year. It is not a little bit of money. It is a monster size of money. When you look at the Chamber's membership, they contribute very little amount of money in comparison to the $2 to $3 million the public is paying via the city of Sedona. So home rule is the only way that they can get that kind of funding. Well, Steve Segner wrote this email. You can read it. It basically says that they're in war to keep home rule, and they need every vote and every dollar to be spent on this war for home rule. The home rule dollars that go to the Chamber of Commerce markets and enhances their members only. It is not an in-city operation. There is no legal tourism bureau. We do not have a tourism district in the city of Sedona or the area either.
And since we're using the chamber largely for that, the chamber members are the ones that are mainly benefiting.
So last year, the chamber, or 1920, the chamber's members only contributed 190-something thousand. So when you look at the comparison, it's apples to, I don't know what. Well, that's what their membership dues are. So they don't gain their strength from their membership dues. They actually gain their strength from public funding via the city of Sedona. 71% of their chamber members are either not in tourism or outside the city limits. And that is
huge conflict of interest.
Yes.
It's a huge conflict of interest.
So the taxes imposed on the in-city businesses are getting pushed out to the non-city businesses that do not contribute to the tax base.
And where this all began, back in about 2013.
2013, the chamber felt like they weren't getting enough money, and they went to the city and they said, you're not contributing to tourism as much as you could. They made a proposal between the chamber and the Lodging Council, and they requested the 0.5% be raised so that they could get 55% of all city bed tax. City Council didn't know better, and they agreed.
And then when you're actually talking about that, social media, let's see, our vice mayor kind of agrees.
So I want to back up just a little bit. So in 2018, this lodging group created a PAC, and they raised over $46,000 to be in war with home rule. So those numbers are stifling, and then you can find them on the state website. Mm-hmm. With these type of dollars, it's very hard to say what is what as far as that. But when we look at Scott Jablow's response to me on social media, it basically says, Donna Joy, that lodging tax wasn't gifted, as you continue to say. It was offered by the Lodging Council to help promote tourism as a tourism tax, not a sales tax, not a residence tax. So, whoa, that's mind-boggling. I didn't realize the Lodging Council were the ones to impose taxes on us in the city.
So that said, we have a lot. There's so much information. We're trying to pare it down a little bit, make it a little bit easier to digest. But Donna has so much information going through it. She can boggle your mind in a heartbeat. And we're trying to find that fine balance of what's too much and what's just enough information for people to actually understand. And so that's really all we're going to do on the actual presentation. We're going to open it up to questions now to see where you are in your understanding and what more you want to know about home rule. So I would like you to use the microphone.
Excuse me? I don't know if I respond. Oh, I did respond. I went, wow, Scott, is that a violation of the gift clause? And then I waited and waited and waited because I thought he would take it down. And then he didn't. And then I took the screenshot and said, well, if he's not going to take it down, then I might as well share such a comment, because that comment is a violation of the gift clause. The Lodging Council doesn't have the legal right to raise taxes and direct those taxes. That is a city government job. And I will say this, and I want to be really clear. I do have fact-based documents to prove everything I'm saying. This is not fabricated. And people stood up and said, please don't go this direction. Pay attention to the residents. We wanted our city government to not use home rule in order to feed special interest money. We wanted it to go back to the people.
And one thing I think is really interesting is that when you look at the numbers of cities that have been on home rule and compared to permanent base, the other alternative that we have, home rule's starting to decline and permanent base is starting to gain ground because they're realizing the stability for the people's voice and for them to have the stability of the community. Basically, it lies more in a more normal form of accounting method and a more checks and balances.
And permanent base is a great solution. Camp Verde just went on it, and I did a quick phone interview with them. And I asked them, why did you choose permanent base over home rule? And they made kind of a very fun sound out of their mouth, and they said home rule was too reckless. Permanent base was nice, stable, controlled. They could count on it. And it was the best option for that city and town. They had put in a wastewater plant, and they bought a water company, and they needed those revenues to increase the baseline, and then you still get those inflation and your population changes as you go. But what it did is it brought in a balance for accounting, which is a one-time vote, and it lasts forever. We like questions.
So does the Chamber of Commerce recommend a slate of people they want to be elected?
Yes,
They do.
they do,
So,
and
okay,
they
so there's the
control.
benefit. So they control who gets in.
Yeah, they control with the League of City Women's, the mayoral event and the city candidates events, and they have for years.
Hi, hello. I'm a Phoenician. I'm a foreigner. I don't really understand what's going on here. So, could you explain in Phoenician terms what exactly the grievance is and what the proposed solution to the grievance is? And given that I'm not from Sedona, let's say I'm someone from Phoenix who would desire to live in Sedona and would like to see Sedona grow in a positive Christian direction with people who view that way, see things that way. Is there any relationship between those two goals? And
Well, I think
Interest
that
groups.
our direction is to bring it into the same way that the residents are welcome and their opinion matters, and that we keep everything transparent and we work together with solutions for the same common cause.
And basically, what is up for a vote is the accounting system and how the accounting system works for the city. And so with home rule, they use that term to make it sound really cozy. The state guidelines, though, basically are giving us protection for the people. It basically offers protection for the people so we have our voice. And when we vote to go to home rule, we're basically given our credit cards right over to the few members that are elected and to our city manager and our city attorney. They're driving the show. The city manager is not an elected position, but she's basically working as the CEO of our city. So we're handing over the right to make the decisions, the right to raise taxes, the right to take our transit system from A to Z extremely fast, and the right to purchase land without the people approving it, and the right to start major construction on parking garages wherever they see fit, and other structures wherever they see fit, without a vote of the people. They bypass the need for the vote of the people.
I have a question, and I don't know if it is related to this particular topic, but I think it is. But the first one, just based on what you just said, is that city manager the same one whose father was the contractor that was getting all the contracts for development here? There was a
This one
woman
you
who
don't
was
know?
inserted into the council or into the governance of this city, whose father is the developer, and they were shooting all those contracts over to him. So when you're asking if where's the city council getting, they were also caught asking for a bribe from another developer in town in order to get the Mariposa restaurant built. So there is corruption going on in the council, and there is a lot of money that we should know where it's going. But my question is this: is the property values on my street have gone up double in the last year, and I want to know if the population of this town has gone up, because I don't see any people. There's nobody working. There's no tourists anymore. Where are all the people, and why are they buying all the houses and not filling them with people? And last time we had the mayoral election here, it was decided by 3,000 people. So how are we going to get more people to get out and vote so that we have a better chance? And where is everybody?
Well, to answer the last question first, that is very, very good point. They always put the home rule on the ballot in August when the majority of our population, or a huge portion of our population, is actually vacationing and not here. It's when the polls are low, and it's when they can make sure their forces get out to vote. So that is pretty telling to me that they really don't want the true voice of Sedona heard on this vote. So, and as far as that's something we'll have to look into on, because Donna's the one that she knows pretty much everybody here. So.
We'll definitely check it out, and then we will definitely get back. There is a little clipboard going around. If you want to sign it and put your email address and/or phone number, whatever, then we can directly contact you again. Our population has gone down. It's continuing to go down. And we do plan on keeping up these type of community meetings where we bring issues to the table and everybody joins in the conversation, so we come up with solutions and move forward in a positive way, and giving everybody a voice to speak.
Yes, we do have Sedona.1, It's actually a website that we're creating and to become more like a media channel, like our news channel. I was always taught, I worked in media. I was a news producer for 10 years back in Oklahoma, and I was always taught that media was the fourth branch of government. We're supposed to be the watchdog of the other branches of government. And I think that largely the media has gotten away from that. And here in Sedona, I think we're in really big need of somebody really coming in and looking for that. And Donna had started the Just Facts to try to just be really factual based in what she's given. And we used to have a program here in Sedona called Backfire. I've heard a lot about it. Haven't been able to see it, but it sounds amazing, where we bring the community in. We have roundtable discussions. We pull in our city council, our mayor, whoever we want to talk to in those days, and we really get down to the nitty-gritty on some topics. And that program is called Backfire. And I'm going to let Donna tell you a little bit more about that.
So Backfire was here in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was a cable TV channel, and they had a show called Backfire. And it was very cleverly done. It was based off of facts, and they invited mayors or different people in different construction areas. Sometimes they would go into a restaurant and do a think tank type of thing where everybody was at the table addressing issues and discussing it. And I have some pretty funny ones of me way back then, and people like the owner of Richard David Clothing, because we were all here back then. So yeah, it's a great program. Just Facts was founded in 2018. We are a public charity, a 501c3. We are educational, research, and analysis. Our focus is on policy analysis, and that's why we have so much on this particular policy of home rule or alternative expenditure limitation.
And what I have proposed to do, and we actually got the blessing of Eddie Maddock, who actually ran that, and we got the blessing to continue that program, but in Backfire Reloaded. So we're going to be trying to pull ideas together for that and get that started at some point. And our purpose is we don't stop here at Home Rule and trying to pull this together and make a difference. Whether or not Home Rule passes or not, the community has to pull together. And that's where we want to become stronger and stronger and make sure our voice is heard regardless of what's going on. So community involvement is what we need on a regular basis.
Hi. Thank you so much, you guys, really, truly, for all your hard work. And I know you guys have addressed this before, but could you explain or briefly what happens under Home Rule with the cultural park? What's going on there? So sold for $7 million, wanting to repurchase at $20 million. Is that correct? But what happens if Home Rule goes in? What potential happens, or how do you foresee? And I agree with you, Megan, like with Mariposa, that land, my understanding, was never zoned, right? So how did they get in there? And the Eco Village right to the south of that, which, anyway. So anything you can say on that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, one thing is in our capital improvements or in our expenditures that are going out, that the actual purchase of Cultural Park, it's pretty apparent that it's included in the budget to try to buy it.
Yeah, there is a pending offer. If you go onto SedonaCulturalPark.com, that is a Just Facts factual website. And the reason why that was put together is for 20 years, I kept on hearing about this land exchange, and nobody could locate the documents. So I targeted it, I worked on it, I hounded people. I hounded them so much that eventually somebody gave me somebody's home phone number at the Forest Service, and that's how I got the land exchange documents. They're fascinating. The names are fascinating. But it was a public charity that was done in a land exchange, and $9 million of public funding plus volunteers went into that cultural park. I believe, after looking at the documents, that it was deliberately driven into close to bankruptcy. So it went all the way through, they filed, and then at the very last second, it got yanked out, and then miraculously the current owner showed up and bought it for pretty much what they owed and sat on it all this time. It is not zoned for housing. It is an open area, but I do believe the city council may try and change that up.
So I just wanted to add to that the information that I know, because I've been working on acquiring that property to preserve it. And so I actually met with Paul Galloway, and I got the owners of the property to agree finally to sell it. And they're willing to sell it to a private party and not to the city. But the offer that was proposed earlier was rejected, and they're basically having trouble with the developer and who wants to purchase it and the city and what they want for the property. The city wants more hotels. And so they're demanding that a hotel is built out there. They want low-income housing. So they're demanding low-income housing goes out there as well. And so as it stands currently, that offer has not been approved, and the person who owns it is fed up with the whole process and wants to get rid of it and has agreed to sell it. So, but for that $20 million price. Now, the developer that owns the building of Cultural Park on the corner is the same developer who developed Mariposa and the Eco Hotel that's next to it. And so he's one of the owners of that property.
Thank you.
So you were asking how the population has gone down when we're supposedly almost completely built out. I think we're 85% built out. And so there's only 15% of the lots available. But what's happened over the last few years is when Airbnb first came in, or Vrbo, they were mostly people who owned houses here and lived here in town. And so therefore they were considered residents of Sedona, so they'd get ballots. But over the last few years, they're all corporate owned now. Corporations have come in and purchased up all of these properties, and also out of town, out of state owners who come in for just a few weeks out of the year, and they're not residents here, so they don't get a ballot. They get a ballot back in Illinois or New York or California. So that's how the population has gone down, is that they're not people who live here any longer. They're either corporate owners or they're out of state owners. So that's how we're reducing our population.
I was eating lunch one time, and I had a guy sitting behind me on the phone, and he was talking about 2 appointments that he had to look at properties, and he was trying to fit in a third one that he just got a hot tip on, and he was trying to juggle his schedule around to go see this next hot tip he got. And in that, he's sitting there saying, yes, I get calls from the realtors here on a regular basis to let me know what's going on the market before it's actually on the market, and I'm here purchasing properties every weekend. So. Mm-hmm.
And actually, when you start looking at the Chamber's marketing, the Chamber marketed Sedona to the world. So not only did they market it to the world, they went over and over and kept on hitting Sedona is the most beautiful place in the world. So when short-term rentals became legal here, all these wealthy people already knew about Sedona, and they all flooded here to buy short-term rentals. So we have to really understand the management of marketing and how you control that. And I just want to bring one other fact up. During the time the Chamber of Commerce was traveling all over the world, they started, the past CEO, started her own company called Tourism Experts International, and TEI. And she actually was competing and selling the same model that we did Sedona. Raise your taxes, give those taxes to me so that I can market you. And she did it while she was employed as a Sedona Chamber of Commerce employee.
Well, and basically, and she's since taken that marketing plan out to Saudi Arabia and into other countries. And when she's selling that and right on her website, what she's selling is the beauty of Sedona. So we're getting marketed every time she goes to sell her program. So, and Sedona's marketing itself on a regular basis. I know there's 2 movies out right now that's just pretty new that's starting to gain some traction, and it's the backdrop for it all. So, we don't need extra help marketing the wonder of Sedona. We need help being the stewards of Sedona. And if we sit back and we become complacent and we just trust what's in play and what's been here just because it's been here for 26 years, the way I look at it is, if you want change from where we're going now, you vote out home rule. And if you don't want change, you vote out home rule. And that sounds like a little conundrum there. But what I mean is, it's like if we want change in the guidance and the leadership and what's going on, because we're going from A to Z really fast. While we've got the money in hand, it's burning a hole in their pocket, and they want to get everything that they've ever thought about doing done when the cost of it is the highest it's ever been. And so they're trying to push it through for a reason right now, why they have the funds, while they have home rule, and just because they can, rather than being good stewards with our money. So this transit system that's coming in, is it coming in the best way possible? We're not seeing what their long-range plan is anymore. They're not sitting us down and taking us through the steps of the process. Here's where we're at and here's where we're going. They're just going. And so if we want to have a say in the growth of Sedona, to keep it more stable and to keep it more community-oriented, we have to step up and we have to give ourselves the tools to do that. And that's our vote and our voice back. It's like they say, it's supposed to be this way. You're handing over, you're choosing us as your elected officials. But, home rule sounds really cozy until you realize you don't get to vote on anything anymore.
Hey, I have a question. Actually, you recognize there's a lot of people who own home here doesn't have the right to vote, the ballot here. Do you have the list of the people who actually live here who receive the ballot? Okay, how can we obtain that? Well, you can buy that. Do we have anyone to do that? And then you can target those people. And then, okay, but I'm talking about you guys. Okay, I think if we have that, and then we can have a canvassing, just go to community, like, people live together or wherever, because they need to know about these things. I mean, I'm glad my friend, she told me, and I just moved back, I've been here 10 years, but I moved out, just moved back. But a lot of people don't know, and can we have a table in a Safeway or Bashas' or wherever? And
we can set up at Vespa. I know Vespa's
so
open.
I think people need to know. If they know that's what's going on, they definitely will vote for it, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And that's why we're here. That's why we're speaking out. And that's why is to just bring awareness to it. But also, we have to spread the word. One voice at a time, 10 friends at a time, an email at a time. We have to spread the word.
Mine is more of an observation because we were supposed to. I thought we were all getting a mailing. Didn't Kurt put mail all those
The
out?
mailers just are printed and are ready to be picked up. And are ready to go to the post office. Yay. And then we're working on an additional mailer that'll go out in another week or 2 as well. So they're going to be hit with a couple of different mailers to all the households.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're sending out a mailer to all the registered people, or all the addresses in Sedona and all the businesses. Correct. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's another way that we'll get that out. So.
Any more questions? And we will be updating. We have 2 websites, the SedonaNewsReport.com, and then we also have HomeRuleSedona.com, or Home Rule, yeah, that's right? HomeRuleSedona.com. And we'll be putting more of our videos and stuff up there. We have, we're working on kind of like a video of the history of the chamber and the city. and we'll be adding that to the website as well. So the people who actually want to dive into the trenches a little bit more and understand it a little bit more, and we're always open to questions as well. And then the Sedona.1, everybody that will kind of go and watch that, that's where we're going to have all of our stuff will kind of be starting to link through Sedona.1, and you can find that on Facebook as well. We're just starting up a Facebook page with that, so you can draw traction to that for us as well. So just help us with social media. When you see us out there and you see people actually speaking out for home rule, a lot of that's just, if you look at the names and you see the names behind it, it's always the people that have a vested interest in it. And so if you, go out, speak up, and if you find yourself getting attacked or barraged, just reach out. Somebody that knows a little bit about what they're speaking on can jump in and help you. But just kind of be in that buddy system out there on social media to just kind of help. We've seen a lot of people kind of soften and start changing their minds and listening a little bit more just from the social media. So we're making a difference one step at a time, and we just need to hit that tipping point within this month. We need to hit that tipping point and really make a huge difference. Can you come up to the mic, please?
So on that social media, don't forget Shelly Evans, Donna Joy, and just tag us. Send us a friendship request. We love connecting to everybody, and then we can share the knowledge across the board.
Again, I'm a Phoenician coming from very limited context and limited understanding. Well, initially limited understanding of what tensions might exist between the local population and maybe potentially incoming population. And I could be speaking on the basis of speculations that might not be entirely warranted. But as a Christian, I believe that it says in the prophecies that Jesus will come and then God will bring plants with healings in their leaves. And a lot of Christians, the normative Christian world is very caught up in the world of pharmaceuticals and war and things of this nature. Whereas I think there are a lot of things in this sort of New Age movement which are very much in line with what Christians ought to know. And I think there's a lot that Christians have to learn. And I think it's possible that we have a lot to learn from one another. And I wonder if if there's a large influx of Christians coming into this area, would that be conducive to the interests of Sedona 1 or contrary to the interests of Sedona 1 in view of that particular potential harmony and synchronicity?
Well, I believe anybody who is reaching, it's about this whole, to me, Ultimate Light mission. We're in the Ultimate Light mission here. And this building is about cooperation. It's about community. It's about coming together and realizing the 95 to 98% of the stuff we all agree upon and that we're all working toward. It's not about fighting. It's not about standing up and always having a battle. It's about finding that camaraderie.
Amen, amen.
And so, yeah,
Thank you.
It's all welcome. Can you say it in the mic, please? And the people online can hear you.
I just thought it would be really good to offer or let people know that we have our meeting tomorrow, and anybody who wants to contribute or get involved with Truth and Transparency, because there were some interesting questions here, and these people might be interested in joining us.
The thing on tomorrow, that's basically if you're ready to do boots on the ground. If you know that you are passionate and want to push forth the message of let's take our, let's step up and let's get our voice and our vote back, and let's let this home rule go away. If that's where you're at and you know it and you're ready to put boots on the ground, donations, whatever you can do, time, effort, talents, then yes, come 4 to 6 and join us. That's not a class that we actually are being able to educate you or answer a lot of questions on what home rule is. We've set up several workshops on Saturdays from 1 to 3, and we'll have a kind of a little potluck bruncheon on the 17th from 10 to noon as well. And we will be going over more again on what home rule really is. But on Thursdays, we pull it together. That's where the people boots on the ground. You want to get the message out to people and make sure people know to come to those meetings or no to get out and vote and make a difference right now. So we have had a few show up lately that are expecting to show up to those Thursdays at 4 and just to get information about home rule, and that we're not able to provide that kind of energy to that at that time. At that time, it's our planning time and our action time.
So yeah, that Thursday meeting is critical, that everybody feel that they know what to do, how to do it, and that we write it down so everybody knows who's doing what, and we work together collaboratively. And these type of settings, we want, of course, everyone to feel welcome, ask tons of questions, put our feet on fire, whatever you want to call it. We're happy to share all the knowledge that we have. But the Thursday is for getting coordinated, making sure that we all know who's doing what and what's getting presented.
Any more questions? All right. Well, we'll still be around for a minute, and thank you all for coming, and thanks for spreading the word.